Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today. And I probably don't need to tell you this. I took a couple days off last week from checking my email really heavily as we were working on this STEM Ecosystems in Cleveland event. And when I came back today, my inbox was just filled with emails and offers, specials, ideas, the latest and greatest tools to solve all of my problems. They're all just sitting there waiting to be found. But the problem is, and you know this, you open up those emails and so much of the products that we see, so much of the products that are targeted towards our kids, towards STEM solutions are frankly kind of garbage. They're not really aligned to our goals and our needs. So how do we tell what's good? How do we tell what's not? There are a lot of educational tools and apps out there. And for those of you on the lookout for new tools to connect STEM education to kids, it can be really difficult to sort through what's helpful and what isn't. We all want tools that'll help make ideas come to life. We want to leverage technology to foster the creativity, design, and engineering skills of children in the classroom and at apologize. Teachers and parents both need creative ways to engage their students in fun science, technology, engineering, math activities, and learning. And we're here today to introduce you to SOLIDWORKS Apps for Kids. This is a really, really powerful tool for children from ages 4 to 14 to begin exploring the excitement of imagining and designing creations. We're going to put a flyer in the chat for you to take a look at. And SOLIDWORKS Apps for Kids inspires young thinkers and gives them the tools to turn their wildest creations into realities. Imagine scenarios where your kids, your youngest students, aren't just imagining solutions, aren't just imagining the things that they want to create, but they're actually designing them and building them. Well, this is a web-based collection of apps available for tablets and other mobile devices. Apps like Shape It, Style It, Mech It, Print It. These apps get children inspired about design in a really fun and exciting way. SOLIDWORKS is an age appropriate, and this is key from those of us who are in education, scaffolded introduction to 3D design tools that not only give young people real world design experience, but it also lays the foundation for the 3D design work they'll be able to do in high school, college, and as adults. And I'm really excited to learn more about that with you today. And today we have two SOLIDWORKS and design education experts with us. First up, we have Justin Burton. Justin's the product manager for SOLIDWORKS Apps for Kids, and he has more than 15 years of experience in product management and a depth of knowledge of the constantly evolving CAD software industry. Justin will develop and design examples for an individual student in a team project for multiple students to design and collaborate for you to see today. We also have with us Marie Blanchard. Marie is an engineering and STEM education advocate and is the senior director for education and early engagement at SOLIDWORKS. Marie is an excuse me, I'm getting over a little thing. I apologize. Marie's an early engagement education community executive with over 25 years in global industry, academia, and community organizations, and is an advocate of engineering and science education on all levels. Marie, a public engineering education for over 10 years, will provide some STEM competencies and apps for kids and how educators have used these apps in and out of their classrooms. I'm excited to learn. I mentioned this before. If you haven't already introduced yourself on the chat, please go ahead and do that. And also please take a look at that Q&A button down at the bottom. As Marie and Justin are talking, put your questions in there. We're going to bring you on live to ask your questions at the end of the session. So Marie, Justin, what are we going to learn about today? What do you have in store for us?
Oh, Jeremy, first of all, thank you for that introduction. Amazing. We are really excited to be here. We're going to give you a little introduction as to Apps for Kids, what it is, how it's being used. Justin's going to give you a little bit more of a deep dive to see what the tools are for educators, how it is to get on board, and what it's like with our classroom application to help teachers. The good news is I'm so excited to be here because I taught in public education for 10 years and was responsible for STEM outreach. And now I have a chance to take what I did, in my town and share it with the world. So Justin, why don't we get started? I think
let me just share my screen.
Yeah, share the screen. And when Jeremy was talking, it really is about fostering creativity. We do talk about engineering skills. We are a science and engineering company and realize that we need to introduce these skills at a much younger age. but we did it so in a really fun way to incorporate mathematics, geometry, sciences in and have it be entertaining. So let's take a look at how you can make ideas come to life and foster creativity. So first of all, we have, as you notice, it really doesn't look like an engineering tool. You're not looking at a drawing. You're looking at some really cute models and lessons. And we have two applications for SOLIDWORKS Apps for Kids. One is for the classroom that we're going to concentrate a lot on today. And the other is for the creative individual, student or parent. So a young student can join us and also on their own be able to use this in a web-based environment. And we have not just the modeling piece, but also the ability to create really cool output, whether it's a picture, like you see the little owl, color by number, which might be a little bit more age appropriate for the younger kids, print a flattened cube and then fold it up. So you start realizing how things look in a six-sided figure in that orthographic projection idea. And then how to take these ideas and look at what possible careers use this type of design with really, really nice lessons for educators, because nobody likes to begin everything from scratch. So we work with teachers to come up with some of the competencies that you see across not only US education, but around the world. You know, people, the teachers we're all teaching about ecosystems and sustainability. And we're going to talk about some of those things up next. So let's talk about the age group. So Apps for Kids is really targeted for children age 4 to 14. And if you're in the US, this starts at grades K through 8. We have seen a little bit of work in preschool, and we also have seen work in high school, depending upon certain technology skills. But really our sweet spot is from 4 to 14. And there's different apps along the way and different ways you use those apps for this target audience. So let's talk about some of the lessons. I know I live right on the water, right outside of Boston. And one of my favorites is about creating a dolphin's tail. So kids have to go through, the teacher presents the statement, the tail of this little dolphin has been injured. You know, what do you have to do to help out the dolphin? We found out with our research that children like to do something on the creative side that is about helping an animal or helping someone, a person. So we did a lot of research to find, hey, you know, aquatic life is really good. We have a lot of problems with pollution. And let's see if we can add some talent here. And then some of the other ones that, again, are my favorite: designing new foods, flying high to talk about air and mechanisms, and then animals and their habitats. And we have rubrics to help educators understand what the competencies are. And we also have different situations where you can highlight and make the problem a little bit more challenging. Next slide. So where are we with Apps for Kids? Around the world, these are all different children in different environments. In the classroom, specifically, I can give you the country of Turkey for primary school in South Africa. But in the United States, if you're here, it's really a lot of after-school workshops, summer camps, tech days, career fairs, museums, maker fairs, really big. We've been at the maker fairs when they were on the ground in New York and San Francisco to standing room only, programs with museums, and of course at home, pretty much anywhere. And then about a year ago, we decided that coding was something that was very, very important. And we created a partnership with our friends at BlocksCAD, and I know Saul is on the phone, to introduce coding to kids. So our lessons are also there, not just for the modeling, the design, the fun, the creativity, styling it, creating mechanisms, but also with the help of BlocksCAD, adding unique numbers. And those numbers to have relativity of a radius or diameter become very important. And of course, there's still a fun outcome like creating this watch. And let's talk about sustainability. At Dassault Systems, sustainability and having a sustainable planet through 3D experiences that are virtual is one of our missions. And as a result, we've created a lot of exercises around sustainability that are accessible on YouTube. A couple of my favorites that we introduced last year is for Earth Day. And then, of course, the cute little octopus that is in the Ocean Day Challenge. Really, really is sweet. Next slide. And now let's talk about classroom and what Justin is going to be showing you. As I said at the beginning, we really created this for educators to have free, fun STEM resources in the classroom for teachers. So Justin, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I guess I should first apologize. I do have 2 young children. One is 4, just at the starting age of Apps for Kids, and the other one's 1, so I can't control the noise that might be in the background, so I apologize beforehand. So I'm going to give a very brief introduction, a little bit more into the details of Apps for Kids and classroom, and then we'll actually get into to take a look. So we talked about the apps at the beginning. Jeremy mentioned the different apps that we have. We as Dassault Systems and SolidWorks, we know engineers and we've worked with engineers and been engineers for 25, almost 30 years. I can't remember the actual amount of years. It kind of all blurs into one. But we know that most engineers go through these design processes and they create things, they enhance things, they produce things, they test things. What we wanted to do is kind of break those workflows up into small bite-sized pieces so that kids could get experiences of doing these sort of engineering type things, but in an easy to kind of digest bite-sized way. So we focused on a couple of creation apps, an enhancement app for kind of painting, and then a production app for not just 3D print, but kind of 2D printing or paper printing as well. So that's how the apps are structured. And when we released these apps, we got a lot of comments from educators and people in education who were asking, well, this is great. I've started to use this in a class after school, but it's kind of hard to manage lots of accounts for kids. We have obviously security that we put in place to make sure that kids under certain ages are asking their parents permission and these sort of things. So like these are causing barriers for use within a classroom. So they really asked for this tool, and that's why we created the classroom application that Marie's mentioned. So to kind of be very simplistic in what it is, it's a safe place for educators to teach 3D kind of as a medium for other teachings, I would say. Some of the lessons that Marie mentioned are on different subjects, like animals in their habitats for one. There was one about foods, obviously the dolphin example. We have a number of different lessons like that, but they're all about teaching other subjects and actually using 3D as a kind of a way to inspire or to excite kids around those particular subjects as well. And just giving a new way of teaching. So all of these apps within Classroom are available through the browser. There's no personal data required from the students themselves. it's controlling access to hopefully limit distraction. And for that, I'll give a quick example. We have our SOLIDWORKS Apps for Kids website where you can get all this information. I'll refer to this at the end. I'm sure we'll share the details of this. When you log in or just access the standard Apps for Kids environment, this is called Creator. This is a public place where kids can create an account themselves or have their parent create the account depending upon their age, and then create something. These are just some of kind of my creations over the time. So something either simplistic like a star or quite complex like this moon lander here. You really do have the ability to create, simple but also relatively complex things dependent upon, your desire to create. But this is a public place. This is where I can share a design, others can see it. You might just look at it and say, a kid will be distracted. If you start a lesson here, they'll be distracted away from it. And that's why we created Classroom. So here I'm in a student account. The student can come in and create a new design based on, obviously, instructions from the teacher. And when they do that, in this example, I'm just going to create a very simple keyring. They either create it based on a standard shape, or we have a way of working that's kind of Minecraft-like, in that you just add blocks to create a blob. Just to give you a little bit of sort of background into that, these are all cubes, but they're rounded cubes. So if I create a cube off the side of here, it is kind of that Minecraft add and remove environment that kids are kind of used to with that type of tool. But by default, within our app, we work in this sort of rounded blob-like way. And you just either add, remove, or you just push and pull to create the things that you want to create. To start off, though, what we found is that it's sometimes easier to start kids off in a way where they're just adding things. So in this case, the student account I've got access to is a BH was the initials of the student that I just chose. And all we're going to do is drag in some letters, and we could give the full library, but I've just been sort of simplistic here and just put a couple in place. And we can just kind of look from different orientations, and we have like videos to teach how to manipulate everything. In this case here, I want to select the whole thing. How to just move it around, whether it be change the shape, change the position, anything like that. We have videos to help you learn how to do it. But hopefully you can see here, by just either double clicking on something to select it all and moving it as a whole, or simply single clicking on a face like this, I can start to change this design quite drastically, and I can even do things like scaling things up, move it around however I want this sort of keyring that I've got to look. Now, we've talked about multiple apps, and one of the key things we wanted to ensure when we started to create this is that those multiple apps, where it makes sense and where we can, they work together. So I've started off with this keyring that's the base colors that we had for all the letters and the keyring sort of size. But I might want to change, let's say, the back part of this to red, the kind of catch, where you hook it onto the keyring, to a different color. And then maybe you can see here as I'm moving around, I can color the whole thing, or I can just color some of these faces. Mistake there, that's fine. So I'm going to just choose the different colors that I want these things to be, and kind of just paint my way around this model. I can also directly draw on here as well. So I'll just do something very basic. Within here, when you're drawing, you have the same sort of palette. So you can change the color, you can change the size of this as well. And you can start to just kind of sketch in, whether it be some eyes or some detail of a face that you wanted to do. But you can directly sketch onto the model. And then finally, I sometimes say kids love stickers, but everyone loves stickers. A father of a 4-year-old daughter, she loves stickers. Like, it's probably her favorite thing. So you can add any of these stickers to your model. So any of these faces that we've got, we can add a sticker. So this one, maybe here. And then any of those stickers can also be either changed in size, changed in color. So maybe I'll just make this one white so it stands out. But you can start to tweak and change them as you kind of carry on your design. Now, it probably doesn't make sense for this one that you would put it on a background because it's a keyring, but you've got lots of different backgrounds to choose from as well to put your design or your creation in. Now, just before I go to the sort of final app here, I'll come back to the example I was going to show. I'll kind of finish here on Print It, where within that workflow where I've created something, enhanced it, I now decide I want to make it. We first of all have access to 3D printing. So you can download the STL of this, you can manipulate it, add the different number of copies, change the size of it, and start to tweak the design within a standard or a basic 3D printing box. Generally, because there's so many different 3D printers out there, I tend to just download the STL straight away. That gives you the highest quality, and then you can manipulate it on your 3D printer, whichever you've got. We do have a partnership with Cindo though. So any of their 3DVox printers, if you connect that printer to the web through their tool, so just connect to your network, you can just generate a code from here and connect that to your account. So whatever you decide to print, you just then send it to the printer, and then it has it in its history, and you can just pick the like the little thumbnail of your model, and you can print it directly through your Cindo printer. So we have a direct connection just to simplify that process. And actually what they did is they took their standard settings to give the best chance of it printing straight away. So if you use this method here, there is no editing needed of the slicer or anything like that. You don't need to edit any of those things. They just choose the best settings. So supports on, attach it to the base, those sort of examples. And then they'll just print it directly. So you can get some really good results actually just by literally just clicking print and then having it sent. But if you don't have a 3D printer, you can still 3D print a picture, so either showing the background or not. Marie mentioned the color by numbers. What we do there is we look at the faces and all the different colors, we give you the key, and then you're allowed to print the picture of what you see here, and then you can just color it in using the print by numbers sort of code. And as I rotate round, you'll see it reconfigures to make sure the numbers are all showing on the appropriate kind of patch that we have. And then finally, Marie also mentioned the concept of this box. And this is kind of one of those, I call it a Karate Kid moment, where he had no idea he was learning karate, he was just painting fences. Here, you have no idea you're learning about orthographic projections in a drawing and how to lay those out from a 3D model. But actually here, you can see that by seeing it as an unfolded box and then folding it back up, you kind of get a picture of your 3D model from all the different sides of the box. So it's kind of a great fun sort of craft-like project to work on with your 3D model. So yeah, if you don't have a 3D printer, you can always still print something kind of in 3D.
So Justin, I see a comment from Patrick in the chat, and it's something that I was thinking about as well, having been in a public education setting for 16 years, is our IT departments are already overburdened, and they keep getting more things to do without increase in budget or staffing. So it looks like all of these products are hosted by you and on the web. Can you talk a little bit, just really high level, about what that integration looks like at the school level? So if it's hosted there, how do folks, assuming they subscribe and all of those things, and they pay for the product, how do they get access to their kids?
Yes, we'll do that, no problem whatsoever. So one of the things, so yeah, this is all hosted by us. When you actually use an app, kind of one of the sort of technical things as well, you mentioned IT, one of the things that is beneficial with apps for kids is the fact that it's all in the browser as well. So what I mean by that, it's not having to talk back to our servers every time you do anything. Literally the first time you open it up, it gets all the stuff it needs to allow you to work. And then there's a very small amount of data that's passed backwards and forwards with regards to just making sure the data is saved. So you can see, obviously, I've not had to press save. It just saved all of the information about the keyring I've got there. So now I'm actually in a kids account. I wanted to show you the apps before we get into the sort of organization, but that is literally the next step I was going to do. So I'm just going to exit out of the kids account and go into the educator or the teacher's account. Now I do have, and I can share this with you in the PowerPoint, I've got all the steps that you need to go through to request an account. So if you just go to the Apps for Kids website here, click on the classroom button, or just follow the navigator to the classroom page, you'll see a little demo video, some tips, and then you'll see how to log in. And if you say try now, that'll get you the registration information that you need. But the way that you set this up is once you've registered, once you've got your account, you would simply just invite a teacher. So here, if I invited Marie, you don't need to accept this, Marie. Not part of my demo. And I can add her as a teacher or as an admin. And the only difference between this is that admins can add other teachers, and they've got a bit more access to deleting things, but teachers can pretty much do everything that they need. And I can either keep adding more in one go and send multiple invitations, or I can just simply invite Marie there. So Marie's now a pending teacher for me that I've invited, and I can manage this further by resending the invitation or removing her if she doesn't want to be part of this.
Perfect.
Then we have the students method. So we first allow you to create a student, and we've got some sort of best practices listed out here. So don't use real names, those sort of tips that we would expect. You give a screen name, a username, so this has to be unique, and then a password, and then it's connected to the teacher or admin's email address. So everything, there is no account really. It's like a Netflix profile from the main account, if that makes sense. So a student doesn't have their own account, they just have like a profile that's connected to that teacher. You can also import via a list. So if you've got a CSV file, or you can just simply import that. So actually there's a standard student list. So you download that, you bring your students into it, so copy and paste it from wherever you manage this, and then you can import that list and have a batch of students added.
So the key though is that there's a way to bring in students in mass. And Marie, yeah. This is clearly a premium product. What is this? What does this cost? How do people pay for this and make this happen?
It is totally free. Yes, that is true. Yeah, you weren't even my lead-in guy to that statement. At Dassault Systems, we're behind the software of planes. We're behind the software for medical devices and all the data that's with them, and sustainable cities. And we are in a crisis, right? We need more STEM literate young people and going into STEM careers. And that starts with the teacher. And that starts at a very young age. And we want to excite kids, all kids, not just the ones, that at age 5 think they want to be an engineer, right? We want to show all kids these creative tools. And that's I think people are always looking for the catch. Well, that's the catch is
It's not free. It's free because you're ultimately looking to build future STEMists so that you have a workforce. And I think that's really critical. I'll tell you the thing that I love about Apps for Kids. This is something that Maria and I talked about a week or two ago, is that if you are in a region or a school district or a college that uses SolidWorks, the big fancy tools, this is kind of a light version of those big fancy tools, meaning that the flows that your kids are developing at age 4, the ways that they conceptualize and work through the tools will allow them to hit the ground running when they get to the high school or college program that's using the full-blown SolidWorks kind of platform. And that's really, really powerful. It gives them a leg up in a scenario where they often don't. So as people are thinking about how to implement this, I know that our friend from New Orleans, Bionica, has a question. Bionica, can you ask your question?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We've got you.
I guess you kind of talked about it a little bit, Jeremy, but I was wondering, are there some opportunities to set up some trainings or certifications for teachers so that they can implement this in the classroom? I worked at a community college where we did use the big SolidWorks, and I had an apprenticeship program, and it was so valuable to those employers. I think it would be great to allow teachers and children to get certified alongside each other and then to be able to implement it in classrooms. So are there any training opportunities?
So Marie, I know that I want my kids to be designing. I love the concept, but I've never used any of this software before. How do I get started, and how do I make sure that my students, my young people who've never used the software either, are prepared to be able to create?
Well, that's why when Justin showed the lessons that are right inside the classroom platform, we suggest that teachers start with one of those. Okay, with something that we've already built, with start parts that are there. There's a lot of tutorials on the web. As far as a specific certification in Apps for Kids, we do not have one. Our SolidWorks, I would say from middle school, high school, and going up to college, community college, we do have a very intensive certification program there. I guess it's something we can look at. I quite frankly, I haven't thought about it because it was all about fun learning. I didn't think to put in a certification, but definitely can take that offline and think about it for the future.
Sounds like a good opportunity for some ecosystem collaboration to help build and design that certification. I agree with Bionica. I think that there are educators out there who are willing to just jump in, try it out, and do a lesson. But ultimately, we could have even more broad adoption if we have some kind of training module. So I think that would be exciting to develop together with you as we kind of look and move forward. I did have one other question, Justin, before you continue with your demo. Lori Marie is asking if you work with Makers for Change yet.
I have heard of Makers for Change. I have not worked with them, but happy to. It's free, and anybody can use it. We're in a lot of maker spaces. I actually sit on the board of the Fab Foundation, and there's a lot of education going on at Fab Labs on the weekends, and it's free and happy if you know somebody there, happy to talk to them and have them use our product. We have a lot of organizations. Place I want to go visit is the museum in Torino, Italy, that uses our software for their classes, and there's some really cool organizations out there that do.
I also want to visit the museum in Torino, Italy. I didn't even know it existed, but now I want to go. All right, so it looks like the product is relatively easy to use. It's free, which is exciting. It's fairly easy to set up. I know that there were some questions a minute ago, Marie, some folks who wanted to pass this along to their school districts and their contacts. What's the best way to do that? How should they be introducing this product to their contacts?
So we put the flyer, you guys have it on the Google Drive in the chat, and then just the website right there, which is swappsforkids.com. And there's a big a classroom button. It's green. I would just say, look at the site. A lot of great videos, a lot of blogs, talks about the apps. There's some examples of content. We even have a BlocksCat example up there. And I think, that's the best way. A couple messages to parents and guardians too, because we realize that that's very important in what we're doing.
Excellent. Marie, there's another question from Lori that that is important, I think, to bring up. Some states, in New York is one of the big ones, have very, very strict rules about student content and student sharing. So number one, do you know right now if you're Ed Law 2D compliant for New York? And if not, or if you don't know, are there ways for students to engage with the platform without having a specific account?
Yeah, Justin talked about that. Justin, you want to take that? Because that's really in classroom and the protection that we have done. We don't know who your students are.
Yeah. So in this example, this was really for me to know, just to give examples and to have some form of sense of the person that I'm pretending to be and the account, the username of that person. But the organization, so the organization in this example is called Dassault Systems UK. So whatever the, school or after school club, whatever it would be, that would be the name across the top. And then they can add their student accounts. So they can give a screen name. So it could be literally anything. It doesn't have to. We advise it not to be the kid's name. The account is still always owned by the teacher or admin, as we call them. And if the student forgets their password, they click forgot password, the email goes to the educator, it goes to the teacher, and they reset the password and tell the kid what their new password would be. So they have this account, but it's always not their account. It's like a sub account to the teachers. So
in other words, as long as you don't choose to enter identifiable data as the username,
exactly, yeah.
Or the password, there is no student identifiable data for the username. And Lori, I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not versed enough on New York's laws to know if that's good enough or not, but I'm also sure that if it's not, Marie and Justin are really good partners on this stuff, and we could reconvene offline and try to figure out how to kind of solve that specific issue. We've got another question from Ebony. Ebony, are you there with us?
I'm here.
Hey, Ebony.
Hi.
Yeah,
sure. My question is related to like the ease of use. So if someone wanted to invest time into using the tutorials to learn the platform, what kind of investment are we thinking? 8 hours, 10, 20, 40? What would that look like?
So I'm an educator who's never used this software before. I want to use it with my kids. How much prep do you think I realistically need, conservatively, in order to make this happen?
It's obviously, I have to think about someone who's new to this. I've lived this for a long time now. But recently, I think it was last year, we worked with a makerspace who contacted us on Monday. I got the contact on Monday, and by Thursday we needed to have them do a class, and that's where the keychain came from. So literally we turned it around. We very quickly had them do the class. It was a great success for them. But I really think that within a couple of hours, from if we're just talking about administration and setting things up, maybe an hour, 2 hours maximum to understand it, because it's really is a simple way. We do have, you'll see the little help icon here. There's a set of 4 getting started. It's called 3, but one of them is an overview. So 3 getting started steps for setting up, so adding teachers, adding classes, creating projects. When you get into the apps have a similar sort of view. So there's, I think, 8 getting started videos, which are all like 2 minutes or less. To just get the basics. And then we have a whole set of tutorial videos on the website. So from the getting started basics, as you can see here, all the way through giving videos on every single one of the apps. And then some like learn how to create I think there's like learn how to create an elephant or a plane. There's lots of different sort of examples that we have that you can like learn how to do specific things. So there's kind of tips and there's tricks and those sort of videos available. So I think from a learning the apps themselves, I would say, again, maybe to get the basics, a couple of hours on, that's all of the apps themselves. So I think your minimum of 8 hours, I think you've got it in the bag. The setup of Absolute Classroom, the working of Absolute Kids Classroom, and also the learning of the apps, I think you'd be on your way. Now, the most difficult thing I think about creating this is actually what should I create? And that's where most of us have the barrier, as opposed to how do I create it? Because once you've got the basics, like in this example of creating a fish, where you start off with a blob and you just start adding to it, you know, it's a really easy thing to repeat once you've got those kind of key basic first steps.
And then, you know, for those listening, and, you know, Ebony too, I also think another potential avenue is in addition to just kind of getting this out to educators, that it's a free option that's vertically articulated to, you know, to industry level tools and all of those things, that maybe it's a good opportunity for ecosystems who are interested in doing something like this to pull some educators together and to do a session where we show them how to access the tools and how to do a simple project that they might be able to implement. Marie, I'm not sure if your team is planning on being at the convening in Bay City, Michigan this summer, but if you are, frankly, maybe something that would be worth considering is doing a breakout where folks could come in with their devices and interact with the platform and be walked through an activity. So that's something we can talk about offline, but I think that could be a useful opportunity. All right. So what's next? What's coming up with the platform that we should be thinking about and aware of as people are starting to determine how this might fit into their local plans for getting students more involved in design work?
Well, I think I'd like Justin to show his last example, Jeffrey, because I think there's a lot of people out there nervous about, you know, starting something new, how long it's going to take. And one of the key things, the skills in STEM, is learning how to work as a team. And one of the examples that we created was this bridge. And just like the charm, I think to start, instead of taking everything from scratch, you want to start with something that we've already done and you feel comfortable about that, and then make it your own. Like the charm is the letters, the alphabet. Every kid loves their initial because it's part of the name. The bridge exercise will give you the start parts, 2 pieces, right? Everybody in the class has 2 pieces. And now you got to design something to connect them. And I think by starting with things, just like maybe you begin with a model that we've already done, and now you talk about adding color. You know, how do you manipulate color to this particular part? And I think using what we have started with can help you. And I noticed that there was a question about homeschooling. Just sign up as a teacher or a mentor. We will accept you as a mentor. Everyone, because of our rules, and you talk about New York State, everyone here is subject to US export compliance. We have to verify you. Okay, doesn't matter who you are, we do that. That takes about 5 to 7 business days. And then you get access to Apps for Kids Classroom and the bridge. So Justin, why don't you talk a little bit about this?
Nice bridge to for me to show. So I'll just finish off like with the setup, because I can actually then create the class. So Once you've got your teachers added and your students added, the next thing to do is to create a class. Now, classes are just really folders. So don't think of this as, oh, it has to be a class in itself. I'm just going to add a description and a name. Once you've created the actual class itself, it's a case of then adding the students. So you can either, because the students are all available in the system, you can either search for them and add them, or you can just pick them from a list and just pick out some of the students that you want to add. You can also add more teachers to this as well, if you've got multiple teachers working on the same sort of project in itself. And then you can add a color scheme, and there's a benefit to adding a color to these classes, just so that you can kind of group ones together, or you can obviously separate them. And now every class by default is inactive, which means that even if you've added students, until you've set it to go, which is making it active, it won't be available to anybody. So the reason why I'm just making it active is just to make my demo easier, but normally you would make this inactive. You would set it up by adding content to it. And the way that you would get that content, so Marie talked about the lessons that we have available. We've got, if I scroll down here, there's numerous lessons that we have. Here's the bridges quick start. So I've got the PDF file of how to conduct the lesson. And then also, if you have any content that's in the PDF file that says start here, you can click the copy button here, and then that will create it and publish it. As you can see here, the bridge template is now in my starter projects. So all I would do is just share that to my bridge example project. And now I would go back, make it active. The students now have the template available to them, and I'll show that. But they also, if I click on here, now I've also got this lesson plan for the bridge example as well. So they kind of work hand in hand. The content, this is where you start. We've got step by step what to do, or what to describe what to do, all the different steps that your kids could take. And then we've got the final step here of printing it. So this is just one of the quick start examples that we have. We also supply kind of a worksheet as well, so you can have a place for kind of ideation. This gives the link to where they need to go to log in as well. So you can print that out, give that to your kids. It also gives some tips on the different apps, and for them to write notes, maybe draw pictures. If they're thinking about the inspiration of what they want to do, they could kind of sketch it out first. We do that for all the different apps. So we have like little tips for each of the apps. So here's some tips for Stylit, for example, as well. So just for time, I'm not going to jump around being a student and a teacher. I'm just going to jump in here. I now see the bridge example folder. You can see it's colored in orange because that's what we set it. This is what the student would see. So they would just see the project, who created it. They see other students in the class as well. And then they can, what we call riff, which is basically copy it to their own projects area. So the way that students can collaborate and work together is by having a single place where they can share to, and then they can copy and create basically a new project based on that existing model. Now you're seeing two because I was the teacher who created it in the first place, but the students will only see one file that they've copied out. We also keep a history of that riff as well. So you can see, like, if someone's created something based on someone else, but they didn't change it, you can see that history, that it's not been changed, and maybe have a discussion about like copying someone's work. So in this case, the idea of this lesson is to build a bridge. So you can see how I'm just going to kind of add blobs here. And the kind of main reason behind this was to introduce a command called bridge. So if I just make this a little bit larger, the bridge command basically is if you select two faces, it kind of pops up. So we only show you tools that are available for the thing you've selected. So again, it's to try and help you sort of understand how to use the tool a little bit easier. You're not always given every tool that you could possibly use. But in this case here, we've kind of just joined together one side and the other. And I could go ahead and I could style it. I could do all sorts of things. All I'm going to do is say it's my bridge. If I save that as the kid, I would then share that back to the classroom so it knows which kind of classroom it came from. So it just prompts to do that one. And now, again, if I kind of put myself back in the teacher mode, I could look and review who was created and added what to the final class. So you would be asking your different students to be pushing their designs back. And I think I had another example here where another demo that I'd created, we'd created this bridge. And as the teacher, I'm able to see it. And
what I love about this too is one of the things that we talk about a lot with design work, especially with our younger kids, is how do we bring in that interest through things like story. So I always think about, the example of something like reading Make Way for Ducklings with, our preschoolers or our kindergartners, and then talking about, are these ducks have to get across this street, and, give them some marbles or something to represent the ducks, and then have them design, print, and build something to actually get those ducks safely across the street. So it gives us that opportunity to go from just sort of, tinkering, which is a really critical skill, but then escalated to that next level of full additive manufacturing and giving our young people that experience, which I think is so exciting.
Yeah, so this was actually one of our employees was working with his daughter's school, and he was doing the lesson, and he created this. And one of the things that he kind of focused on here was to allow, so the white area, not sure why my PowerPoint just died there. See if I can bring that back up. There we go. So the white area, where the kids were instructed, you can do anything on the white area, but don't touch the red. And what that meant is that when he then 3D printed all the different student models, they would easily snap together to piece together this one big model of all the kids' bridges. And it was kind of one of those working individually for a team when you brought them all together. So it was I just thought it was a really nice example that they created, and that's why we decided to bring it kind of into the lesson plans that we have. So this is the workflow I've just described, where we use the lesson content, we set up the classes, we use the workflow for a teacher going into a student, how they share back to the class, and then the teacher can come back and 3D print it to sort of finish it off. As Marie said, on the educators page, there are some resources. You can look at Classroom through the apps, but if you basically, just as she mentioned, go to that website, swappsforkids.com, and there's a flyer obviously as well. You can learn all about it. Now, I could sit here for hours talking to you. One of the things I didn't mention is actually the Mech It app. This is a 2D mechanism creation app. You can see the model at the top left there. We have the ability to add markers, and as you play the mechanism, it draws what the position of that point is in this kind of spirograph and sort of artistic thing. So you can do it for mechanical models and just see, oh, this thing moves in this direction, or you can make kind of nice artwork, as we've got in this example as well.
Perfect. Well, Marie, Justin, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know my wheels are kind of spinning. Xan's talking in the chat about, that there are a lot of cool projects here to do with architects and civil engineers as mentors, bringing those folks in. Bill's asking about specific laboratory pairing, which I don't think is a thing that exists, but boy, is that a good opportunity to do learning in the lab, and then, design and test solutions based on that as well. I think this is a really, really exciting tool. And my favorite part of it, and I already said it once, and so did Bionica, but I want to say it again because I really think it's so important, is that this is articulated to industry grade tools. So this isn't just a random kind of shot in the dark opportunity to do some design work, which still has value. This is not just that, but it is also laying the groundwork for those of our students who do decide to dig in deeper, to maybe look at design and additive manufacturing career paths, to get ready to be able to advance quickly with those other tools. And I think that's really exciting. Maria, what do you have to close us out?
Well, that's a really good point, Jeffrey, because my interns actually used that Mech It app to showcase how their fingers, now my interns are at WPI, and these engineering women, students, wanted to really create something clear as to how the fingers of the robot were going to use or be used. And they used Mech It because the visualization was so good. Versus something as a 2D sketch, which looks just like a pencil line. I don't want you to think that I forgot a couple of the questions that were out there. Yes, we support FIRST Robotics. We have about 1,800 teams that we are sponsoring with free software right now. Apps for Kids is used a little bit and mostly by FIRST Lego League to explain, to showcase, but really the engineering tool is SOLIDWORKS with the drawings and the assembly modeling that is needed. Conceptually, you could do something in Apps for Kids.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate the two of you taking so much time with us today. We'll definitely talk about maybe the possibility of doing a little breakout or session at the convening in Bay City this summer. Those of you who are on this call, if you haven't already registered for that convening, make sure you do. We're very excited to all be together again in real life for the first time since San Antonio. Justin, Marie, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.